What up, y'all? It's Chris here to give my UFC 102 predictions. I'm gonna go over the undercard real quick. No, it's not too stacked or anything. First off, Marcus Aurelio against Evan Dunham. I'll go with Dunham to win this by decision. You know, Aurelio, if he can't submit you, he's probably not gonna win. And from what little I've heard of Dunham, he's a better wrestler and he's got okay jiu-jitsu, so I think he's gonna be able to keep it standing for the most part and win a decision. Nick Catone versus Mark Munoz. Both guys are primarily wrestlers. I think Munoz is a little bit better there, so I'll go with Munoz to win this by decision. Tim Hague versus Todd Duffy. Duffy undefeated. Don't really know anything about him. Hague won his last fight, UFC debut against Pat Barry. Hague looked alright in that fight, but I'm gonna go with Duffy. Just call it a hunch, you know. I don't really know any other reason why. Mike Russo against Justin McCauley. Russo by decision. And Gabe Gonzaga against Chris Teixeira. Teixeira comes in with an impressive record, 17-1, also making his UFC debut. But I just think Gabe Gonzaga is a better fighter, you know. Bottom line. I may be proven wrong, but till proven otherwise, Gabe Gonzaga to win this fight by submission. Anyways, on to the televised portion of the card. First off, Krzysztof, the Project Shashinsky against Brandon the Truth Vera. Krzysztof coming off impressive back-to-back victories over Andre Guzman and Brian Stann. TKO'd Andre Guzman in his last fight. Brandon Vera coming off a TKO win over Mike Pat. Pretty much just kicked the legs out of him, you know, outclassed him. Before that, he had the loss to Keith Jardine in a pretty underwhelming performance, in my opinion. This is a pretty good fight, you know, but I gotta go with Vera to win this, you know. I think he's better standing. I think he's got a little bit better wrestling. Jiu-Jitsu department, I think they're pretty much even up there. But I just think Brandon Vera is the better fighter overall, you know. I think he's just a higher level caliber, not by a large amount, you know, no disrespect to Krzysztof. But I do think Brandon Vera is a little bit better fighter. Hasn't looked all that good at light heavyweight since moving down there, but if he's on his game and keeps his fight standing for the most part, I see him winning, so I'm going to go with Vera by TKO round 2. Next up, we got Jake Roshaw against Chris Leben. Roshaw lost his last fight, UFC debut to Dan Miller. Got caught in a guillotine really quick. Chris Leben lost his last fight to Michael Bisping. Then got caught with pop for steroids on the test. So he's been out for a while. Probably look for a little bit of ring rust. You know, it may take him a while to get on track here. Roshaw's got a lot bigger wrestling advantage here, but he's primarily a wrestler. Also, he had a fight in the WEC in the past where he got hit in the face a lot. He won the fight, but it doesn't bode well for this matchup because Chris Leben is got a lot of good power in his hands. You know, he's primarily better off keeping the fight on the feet. I think Roshaw can put Leben on his back, but I think Leben is he's competent enough to survive there, maybe get a stalemate. I don't know if Roshaw's going to be able to do enough damage there to keep it from getting stood up by the referee. I think the fight will end up back on his feet, and I think Chris Leben will end up knocking Roshaw out. I say a third round TKO for the Cat Smasher. Next up, Nate Marquardt against Demain Maia. Good fight. Marquardt's coming off a just absolute devastating knockout win over Wilson Govea. Before that, he also smashed Martin Kampman. Some really impressive victories. And Demain Maia undefeated still, 10-0. Coming off a really good submission win over Chael Sonnen. Really impressive way he ended that fight there. So this is a good fight, you know. Demain Maia, undefeated in the UFC, obviously. 5-0, won all those fights by submission. The problem is, the guys that Damian's beaten in the UFC, Sonnen, Nate Quarry, Jason McDonald, Ed Herman, and Ryan Jensen, none of those guys have the stand-up game that Nate Marquardt does. And aside from Jason McDonald, none of them are all that good in the jiu-jitsu department either. Not that Marquardt wants to, you know, take it there or hang, or, you know, have the fight go there for the most part, but I think he can hang there as long as the fight doesn't go there for too long. Marquardt's last lot was a split decision in Taos Latis, who's also a primarily jiu-jitsu fighter, but he should have won that fight. He lost more so on a point being taken away and whatnot. I just think Nate's obviously he's a better fighter in more departments. Better fighter standing. I think he's a bigger fighter, stronger fighter, better wrestling. I think he should be able to fend off any of Damian's takedown attempts for the most part and dominate on the feet, you know. He dominated Govea and Kampman on the feet, who are pretty good, you know, stand-up fighters, much better than Demain Maia is in that department. If Demain can get him down and get on top, he has a really good chance to win this fight, but I don't know if he's going to be able to make that happen. I think Nate's size and strength advantage and wrestling advantage is going to be able to fend off Damian's takedown attempts for the most part. Maybe Demain can catch Nate in a scramble, you know, catch him in a guillotine, anaconda choke, a Darce choke, something like that. But unless that happens, I just don't see him being able to pull off the win here. I think Nate's going to be prepared for that, you know, training with Greg Jackson and whatnot. I think Nate's going to keep this fight standing for the most part and just pick Demain apart. And I see Nate win this fight by a TKO round 2. Next up, we got Demain Jardine against Thiago Silva. Jardine's coming off a loss to Rampage, but it was a pretty good performance. You know, I thought he was going to get his taken apart, and he hung in there pretty good and made it a close fight. Before that, he had the win over Brandon Vera. Thiago Silva is coming off his first defeat in the UFC. First loss period, Lyoto Machida fight where he got caught at the very end of the first round and got knocked out. But honestly, he was losing the fight up to that point anyway. This is a close fight to call. I saw Chase and Sean, the MMA professor, talking about how Keith Jardine hasn't fared so well against overly aggressive fighters such as Houston Alexander and Wanderlei Silva. I agree with them on that, definitely. So Jardine's going to have to be careful of the initial onslaught because Thiago Silva is an aggressive fighter. But if he can survive that, he should be alright, I think, you know. We saw Silva struggle against Machida, who's a good counter fighter. I think Jardine's got a good counter fighting game as well, especially with the leg kicks. It's hard to call Jardine sometimes, you know. He's got wins over Chuck Liddell and Forrest Griffin, but then he's got, you know, those quick blowout losses of Wanderlei Silva and Houston Alexander. It's also, you know, put a gauge on Thiago because, you know, he's looked impressive up to that Machida loss. But he looked lost in that fight, you know, in all honesty. You can make a case for either guy. I mean, you could do that in most fights, in all honesty. But I do think that Keith Jardine's going to be able to survive the initial assault that Thiago's going to go for. And I think he's going to be able to win a decision, you know. Thiago hasn't had to go late into the fight very often. You know, we don't know how his stamina is. He hasn't really had to go into the third round, I don't think, at all in the UFC. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. And I think Jardine's going to just be able to keep the fight. I think they'll probably both keep the fight standing. You know, they like to fight there. Both are pretty good on the ground, probably even there. I'm not for sure. Silva might have a slight advantage. If Silva catches Jardine though and clips him, he could, you know, if he hurts Jardine, Jardine hasn't shown the best chin in the past. And if Silva gets on top, I think he can stop the fight very quickly. But I think Jardine's going to be able to, you know, use the leg kicks, fight a counter-fighting style. I think Silva might get tired late second, third round. And I see Jardine pulling out a decision here. On to the main event. Randy the Natural Couture against Antonio Minotauro Rodrigo Nogueira. Couple of legends going at it. Randy's coming off the loss to Brock Lesnar, obviously. Before that, he had the win over Gabriel Gonzaga, although that was almost like 2 years ago now. Nogueira's coming off the loss to Frank Mir, where he got picked apart, man. He got destroyed. I was surprised. I really thought he was going to win that fight. Before that, he had the win over Tim Sylvia. You know, this should be a pretty good fight. Maybe a little late in their careers. But better late than never, I suppose, right? Anyways, you know, Randy looked alright early in the fight against Brock. He almost got Brock down once, but Brock grabbed the cage, you know. He just got caught with the big punch, you know. Brock jumped on him and stopped him. But I don't think that should be a problem here, you know. Nogueira obviously doesn't have the size, strength, and power that Brock Lesnar does. The thing about this fight is, what does Nogueira have left? He looked awful in the Mir fight, but I guess he had staph going into that fight, staph infection. But a staph infection doesn't make your chin that bad, you know. He got hurt a lot on the feet, got dropped a couple times. And Frank Mir's never shown the most power standing, so I'm really worried that all the wars that Nogueira has been in is finally taking its toll on him. I know a lot of people have questioned that. And I just really think so based off that Frank Mir performance. You know, based off the way he wasn't able to absorb shots. He just hasn't looked good in his tenure in the UFC against Mir, Sylvia, and Heath Herring. He definitely hasn't looked like the Nogueira of old. I heard he's in good shape for the fight, but I don't know, man. All those wars take its toll on your body. You know, I'm a fan of boxing, and I know how that goes from what I've seen in the history of that sport throughout. Randy, you know, I know he's up there in age, but he hasn't taken too much damage over the years. Always comes in great shape. He's got the advantage, in the wrestling department. I think he should be able to fend off most of Nogueira's takedown attempts, if not all of them. Obviously, Nogueira's got a huge advantage in the submissions, but I think Randy can avoid most of those, for the most part. I don't think it'll stay on the ground for that long anyway. I think Randy should be able to avoid most of the takedowns, as I said. And if he does get, if the fight does on the ground, I think he should be able to get up rather quickly. Standing, it's close. Randy's better at the dirty boxing. I don't know about the rest. It all depends on Nogueira's chin, as I said. But I don't know. I just think Randy's overall game is going to be better. And like I said, I'm worried about what Nogueira has left at this point. So I'm going to go with Randy to pull this out by decision. Probably be back on Sunday to give my thoughts afterwards. But until then, y'all, I'm out.